beginning.
Roll over, then you're on my hair.
Of something wonderful.
Tim.
Quick question. What if I told you some of the scariest horror movies in years all came out in 2025?
Mine.
2025. These aren't throwback releases, not delayed films, and not hype-only titles. Every movie on this list was actually released in 2025 and earned solid reviews.
Second warning.
Some of these are brutal. Some are slow and disturbing. And a few are the kind of movies that make you sit in silence after the credits roll, wondering why you did this to yourself. So if you're looking for the most intense horror experiences 2025 had to offer, let's start the countdown.
Beginning.
Roll over, then you're on my hair.
Of something wonderful.
Tim.
At number 10, we're starting with a horror movie that doesn't rely on jump scares, it relies on pressure. Together. The story follows a couple who escape the noise of everyday life for a quiet countryside retreat. No crowds. No distractions. Just isolation. But almost immediately, something feels off. The house feels too distant from the world. The silence lingers longer than it should. And the tension between them doesn't fade, it tightens. What makes Together unsettling is how personal the horror feels. The fear doesn't come from obvious monsters or loud shocks. It comes from emotional fractures, buried resentment, and the creeping sense that whatever is happening in this place is feeding on their relationship. As strange events begin to escalate, the film blurs the line between psychological breakdown and supernatural influence. You're constantly questioning whether the threat is external, or if the couple is slowly destroying each other from the inside out. The scares are subtle but effective, long takes, minimal music, and an atmosphere so heavy it feels suffocating. And by the time the horror fully reveals itself, it feels inevitable, like the ending was waiting for them all along. Together is quiet, uncomfortable, and emotionally cruel in the best horror way. A tense, slow burn start to this countdown.
Do it!
At number 9, we're moving into much darker territory with a horror movie that weaponizes grief, Bring Her Back. The story follows two siblings who are taken into a new home after a devastating loss. At first, their foster guardian seems caring, almost too caring. She's gentle, attentive, and deeply fixated on the idea of family. But it doesn't take long for that warmth to feel unsettling. Strange rules start appearing. Private rooms are off limits. And there's a constant feeling that something terrible already happened in this house, and never really left. What makes Bring Her Back so disturbing is how emotionally cruel it is. It's not just scary, it hurts. And that makes it more disturbing than you expect.
Mine.
At number 8, we're diving into a horror movie that takes a familiar fairy tale and completely mutilates it, The Ugly Stepsister. This film reimagines the classic Cinderella story, but instead of magic and romance, it gives us obsession, jealousy, and brutal body horror. The story focuses on the stepsister living in the shadow of impossible beauty, and the extreme, horrifying lengths she's willing to go to in order to be seen. What makes The Ugly Stepsister so disturbing is how physical the horror is. Beauty isn't symbolic here, it's enforced. Bodies are altered, pain is normalized, and every attempt at self-improvement comes with consequences that are hard to watch. The movie leans heavily into grotesque imagery, but it's not gore for shock value alone. Every unsettling moment ties back to themes of worth, comparison, and how society rewards beauty while punishing anyone who doesn't fit the mold. As the story escalates, the tone becomes increasingly nightmarish. Scenes linger longer than you want them to. The camera refuses to look away. And the discomfort builds until you're almost begging the movie to stop, which it absolutely does not. Despite how extreme it gets, the film has been praised for its boldness and originality. It's twisted, fearless, and unapologetically cruel, the kind of horror that dares you to keep watching. The Ugly Stepsister isn't just scary, it's deeply unsettling. A grotesque, unforgettable entry that earns its spot at number 8 don't fully see coming. At number 6, we're stepping into a horror movie that trades jump scares for atmosphere, a dark, gothic reimagining of a classic, Frankenstein. This version leans heavily into tragedy and dread, focusing less on spectacle and more on the slow decay of morality, obsession, and creation gone wrong. From the very beginning, the film feels heavy, like something terrible is inevitable, and everyone involved knows it. What makes Frankenstein unsettling is how intimate the horror feels. The monster isn't introduced as pure evil. Instead, the fear grows from neglect, isolation, and the consequences of playing God without taking responsibility for what you've created. The visuals are cold and haunting. Dimly lit corridors, decaying estates, and long silences make the world feel lifeless, like it's already rotting from the inside. Every conversation feels tense, every decision feels like it's pushing the story closer to disaster. As the relationship between creator and creation begins to collapse, the film becomes deeply uncomfortable. Guilt replaces control, fear replaces curiosity, and the line between monster and man starts to blur in disturbing ways. There's very little relief here. No sense of safety. Just an overwhelming feeling of dread as the story spirals toward its tragic conclusion. When the violence finally erupts, it feels sudden, cruel, and unavoidable. Frankenstein isn't loud or flashy, it's slow, bleak, and emotionally haunting. A gothic horror experience that proves sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we abandon. At number 5, we're bringing back a franchise that's built entirely on one terrifying idea: you can't outrun death. Final Destination, Bloodlines. This entry takes the familiar concept and twists it just enough to make it feel fresh again. Instead of random victims, the story centers on a group connected by a shared family tragedy, and once death realizes it's been cheated, it starts correcting the mistake in increasingly brutal ways. What makes Bloodlines so effective is how tense it is. Every scene feels like a setup. Ordinary objects suddenly feel dangerous. A harmless routine turns into a slow-motion panic attack as you try to predict what's about to go wrong, and you're almost always wrong. The movie leans hard into anticipation. Long pauses, lingering shots, tiny details that make your stomach drop. You're constantly scanning the screen, waiting for the chain reaction to begin, because once it does, there's no stopping it. And yes, the deaths are inventive, cruel, and shockingly well executed. But what really sells the horror is the inevitability. There's no villain to fight, no curse to break, just time ticking down until the next name on the list is crossed off. This sequel has been praised for understanding what made the franchise scary in the first place, not just gore, but dread. That helpless feeling that survival is temporary, and escape is an illusion. Final Destination, Bloodlines is tense, vicious, and relentlessly entertaining. A franchise revival that proves death still hasn't lost its sense of creativity. At number 4, we have a horror movie that feels stylish on the surface, and deeply unsettling underneath: Sinners. This film drops us into a world where temptation, guilt, and belief slowly turn into something far more dangerous. From the very beginning, there's a sense that the characters are already trapped, not by walls or monsters, but by their own choices. What makes Sinners so effective is its atmosphere. The movie moves at a measured pace, letting conversations linger and silence do most of the work. Every look feels loaded. Every interaction feels like it's hiding something ugly just beneath the surface. As supernatural elements begin to creep in, the horror doesn't explode, it seeps. Strange behavior goes unexplained. Morality starts to blur, and the line between punishment and consequence becomes impossible to separate. The film leans heavily into mood rather than spectacle. Dim lighting, unsettling sound design, and haunting imagery create a constant feeling of dread, like something terrible is inevitable, and everyone knows it, but no one can stop it. By the time the story reaches its darkest moments, the horror feels personal. The scares aren't just about what's happening on screen, they're about what the characters are forced to confront within themselves. Sinners has been praised for its confidence and restraint. It doesn't rush. It doesn't over-explain. And it trusts the audience to sit with the discomfort until it becomes overwhelming. This is slow, creeping horror done right. Elegant, disturbing, and quietly brutal, a perfect choice for number 4.
Second warning. Third warning.
At number 3, we have a horror movie where survival isn't about fighting monsters, it's about endurance: The Long Walk. Set in a brutal near future, the story follows a group of teenage boys forced to participate in a government-sanctioned walking contest. The rules are simple: keep walking, or die. slow down too much, and you're executed on the spot. There is no finish line, only one survivor. What makes the long walk so terrifying is how relentless it is. There's no escape, no hiding, and no moment of safety. Every step becomes a countdown. Every mile chips away at the body, the mind, and whatever hope the characters had left. The horror here is psychological and physical at the same time. Blisters turn into wounds. Exhaustion turns into hallucinations. Friendships form, and then become unbearable, because you know only one of them can make it out alive. The film takes its time showing how the walk breaks people. Conversations grow quieter. Jokes stop landing. Panic sets in as the rules become less abstract and more fatal. Death isn't dramatic, it's sudden, public, and cruelly routine. What's truly unsettling is how normal this nightmare feels inside the world of the film. Crowds watch. Officials enforce the rules without emotion. And the boys are treated less like humans, and more like entertainment. By the final stretch, the long walk becomes emotionally devastating. You're not scared because something jumps out at you, you're scared because you're watching people be worn down until there's nothing left. It's bleak. It's exhausting. And it's horrifying in a way that feels uncomfortably realistic. A merciless survival nightmare that earns its place at number 3.
I had a bad dream. It was about missing kids.
At number 2, we have a sequel that somehow manages to feel even colder and more disturbing than the original, The Black Phone 2. This time, the story expands the nightmare instead of repeating it. The trauma didn't end when the phone stopped ringing, it followed the survivors home. And as new disappearances begin to surface, it becomes terrifyingly clear that the evil they escaped isn't finished yet. What makes The Black Phone 2 so unsettling is how deeply it leans into psychological horror. The fear isn't confined to a basement anymore, it lives in memories, nightmares, and the constant feeling that safety is temporary. The film understands that surviving something horrible doesn't mean it's over. The atmosphere is suffocating. Empty streets. Dim interiors. Long stretches of silence broken only by distant sounds that make your stomach tighten. And when the phone rings again, it hits harder this time, because you know exactly what it means. The supernatural elements are used sparingly but effectively, blending with real-world fear in a way that feels grounded and cruel. Visions bleed into reality. The past refuses to stay buried. And every clue uncovered only raises the stakes. What really elevates this sequel is its emotional weight. It doesn't just try to scare you, it makes you sit with fear, guilt, and the cost of survival. The tension builds slowly, then snaps without warning, delivering moments that feel genuinely harrowing. The Black Phone 2 has been praised for expanding its world without losing what made the original terrifying. It's darker, more confident, and far more haunting. A chilling, nerve-wracking experience that proves some calls should never be answered, and earns its place at number 2. And finally, at number 1, we have the scariest horror movie of 2025, a film that doesn't give you time to breathe, 28 years later. This is a full return to raw, relentless apocalypse horror. Decades after the outbreak, the world hasn't healed, it's evolved into something even more dangerous. The infected aren't just fast and vicious anymore, they're part of a world that has learned how to survive without mercy. What makes 28 years later so terrifying is how grounded it feels. There's no sense of safety, no protected zones, and no comforting illusion that humanity is in control. Every location feels temporary. Every group feels one mistake away from collapse. The movie wastes no time reminding you how fragile survival really is. Attacks are sudden, violence is chaotic, and death doesn't come with dramatic buildup, it just happens, fast and brutal, exactly when you don't want it to. But the real horror isn't just the infected, it's what people have become after decades of fear. Trust is rare, morality is flexible, and survival often means making choices that feel just as horrifying as the monsters themselves. The atmosphere is oppressive from start to finish. Handheld chaos, harsh sound design, and bleak environments make the movie feel almost documentary-like, as if you're watching the end of the world through someone else's terrified eyes. By the final act, 28 years later is emotionally exhausting, not because it's non-stop action, but because it never lets you feel safe. Not once. And when it ends, it doesn't offer comfort, it leaves you sitting there in silence. This isn't just the best horror movie of 2025, it's one of the most intense horror experiences in years. Unforgiving, brutal, and absolutely unforgettable. That's why 28 years later earns the number 1 spot. Alright, So those were the best and scariest horror movies of 2025, and honestly, some of these were rough to sit through in the best way possible. Whether you're into slow, psychological dread, brutal survival horror, or stories that just quietly make you double-check the locks, and maybe leave a light on afterward. If you enjoyed hanging out and talking horror with me, make sure you're subscribed to Watch with Jenny. This channel is all about finding great movies, breaking them down like friends do, and suffering through the scary ones together. Let me know in the comments which movie you're brave enough to watch, and which one you're absolutely not watching alone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, with more movies we probably shouldn't watch at 2 a.m.